Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Council. My name is Ben, and I'm going to be your host for today. But first, you might notice we have two people who we probably haven't seen in a little while in the podcast. So first of all, we're just going to say hi to a little bit of a horror hour crossover here because we might be talking about a certain Halloween film soon. George, George, how are you doing today? You excited?
I'm very excited. It's nice to be back with such wonderful company today. So I'm very much looking forward to diving into all the topics, etc. And thank you very much for having me back.
Oh, anytime, George. And of course, we have someone who we really haven't seen in a while. It is one Mr. Antony Post. Antony, how have you been? You're back now.
I'm good. I'm very happy to be back. Yes, I am rejoining the council, which I'm very happy to be doing. I feel like every time I have like I've moved since the last time. I'm now in sunny California in film school. So now that I'm comfortable in my new lifestyle and everything, moving across the country is behind me now, I feel really great coming back here. It's so wonderful to be back with all of you in this wonderful community. And I'm happy to be talking movies and television with all of you. I'm looking forward to it. So thank you first off to all of you here, the council members here and not here, for welcoming me back. It's such a treat and an honor to come back. So thank you all.
Well, Antony, we really needed someone who was well spoken on the podcast, and we just thought you were perfect. So anytime.
Thank you.
Well, speaking of getting into talking about movies and television, we have some really interesting topics to dive into today. Not only are we going to be discussing the new James Bond film, No Time to Die, only Antony and George have seen it, so we won't really be talking about it, but they will. But we're also going to be diving into another legacy franchise, which is the return of Michael Myers and Laurie Strode in the sequel to Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, which I think we're all going to have one opinion or another on, whether we're excited for it, whether we don't really care. But you know what? It's going to be fun to discuss it all the same. So without further ado, why don't we get into talking about No Time to Die? I haven't seen it. Kyle, Constance, I don't think you two have seen it either, have you?
Nope.
Not yet. It's on my list.
It's on our list, but for now, we're going to let Antony take the lead as he's back. He's going to start talking about a film which I'm pretty sure he's pretty passionate about. So Antony, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. So No Time to Die, I have seen it twice now. And I wouldn't say I'm the biggest James Bond fan. I don't get into it as much as like Marvel or Star Wars for me, but I have really enjoyed the Daniel Craig era of the character. I think that when it comes to like influential movies on blockbusters in Hollywood, I really think that Batman Begins, Casino Royale, and Iron Man are the three movies that made such an impact on this industry. And I know some people may forget Casino Royale because it's not part of DC or Marvel. It's not part of these big franchises. But I mean, Bond, first off, is one of the biggest franchises in terms that it'll turn 60, I believe, next year. So the fact that we still have Bond movies is pretty incredible. But I think what was so great about the Daniel Craig era is that it was so grounded and the action was very visceral. But the true calling card of the Daniel Craig era, in my opinion, was the humanity of James Bond. You truly got to understand the character. And I think what they have done in the better installments of the franchise, I've enjoyed them all to varying degrees, but I think Casino Royale and Skyfall are two fantastic films, great action movies. And I think you truly get a sense of who this person was. And I think No Time to Die sits among those two films as a great finale to this era. I loved the integrity the film had. I love the action choreography. I think Joji Fukunaga, who directed it, what a fantastic debut into big blockbuster action, because he commands the camera in such interesting ways, so many interesting camera movements, and the way he directs the action is very unique, yet still Bond. This isn't a Mission Impossible movie. This isn't a Marvel movie. This is a James Bond movie, yet it still holds the gritty action that Casino Royale started with. I think Daniel Craig gives a beautiful performance in this, one of his better performances, I think, from his whole career, not just within Bond. I think that he sits on the same plane as a lot of other great actors in their final adventures, like Christian Bale in The Dark Knight Rises, Hugh Jackman in Logan, unfortunately not Carrie Fisher, but the other original trilogy members in the sequel trilogy. He is able to embody this character in such dynamic ways. And that's the last thing I think I really love about No Time to Die, and I'll throw it over to George, is that I think the movie is able to keep what works about this franchise and celebrate it, but still invent new ways. And one of the main things that is done in that arena is the female characters. If anybody thinks it doesn't matter, like what impact does somebody being in the room have? I point to you to Phoebe Waller-Bridge being in the room for this movie, because the female characters are, first off, all of them are different. Ana de Armas's Paloma, Lashana Lynch's Nomi, Madeline Swan, who's played by Leah Seydoux, and even Moneypenny, played by Naomi Harris. All of them are very distinct and different characters. They don't, in this masculine franchise, they don't give up their femininity. They're still very much female characters, but they're a range, and they're given a lot to do. And I just really loved those performances and those characters. The entire cast is incredible. Jeffrey Wright is here. This is the best Billy Magnuson has ever been, in my opinion. Up there with Into the Woods and him pulling off his shirt and Chris Pine. But yeah, so I love this movie. The 2 hours and 43 minutes went by so fast. If you do feel comfortable, please see this in IMAX or Dolby. I saw it in IMAX and it was incredible. But if you don't feel comfortable going to a theater, I still think whatever screen you watch this on, catch it down the line, because it is a really great action film that I think talks about that our heroes aren't invincible. Our heroes make mistakes. They sometimes do things for them, and sometimes that's hard. And I like that the movie looks at James Bond not as a person with a license to kill, but more as just a person who has flaws. And that's what I loved about this era of James Bond, and that's why I think No Time to Die concludes this era on such a high note for me. So yeah, I loved No Time to Die.
Gotta follow that. Great. That was very well. I don't even have the words to say, but you did a great job. Mine won't be as literate, because I don't have words just come out of my mouth. They don't have a moment to breathe. So everything will just be like that. But I would agree with Antony. I really enjoyed this film. I'm not a fan, but I've never been like fully invested into these films. I think like maybe a lot of people, I was like brought into them via family members. My dad was really into them, and so when I was younger, it was Pierce Brosnan who was just towards. I mean, I think he'd finished by the time I was watching them, but he obviously the Daniel Craig ones hadn't come out then. And I get a lot of hate from. I've got my best friend Josh. He's obsessed with these films. Like he loves all of them, the originals, and Daniel Craig is his favorite Bond. And I was saying the other day to him, I was like, I really enjoyed the last Pierce Brosnan film with Halle Berry in, and he said, George, you've got terrible taste. That's the worst Bond film there ever has been. So I'm probably not the best person to judge these films, but I like that film because it was cool. He said there's an invisible car, and he said that was stupid. But anyway, I really like these films. I think Daniel Craig's great. I don't know if this is controversial, but I don't know how much of a good actor he is. Like in terms, I think he's really good in this role, but then he was good in Knives Out, but I don't know if he's like, up there, but he really does embody Bond, and you kind of, you do feel that, and in this one in particular, you really feel like there's like it's come like a full circle sort of way, and you can sort of see the story progression with his character. I don't think that, because I was worried at first that the length of time, obviously all the marketing and everything, this has been pushed back, was going to harm the film. I mean, I'm not 100% sure what the box office is looking like right now, but in terms of, for me, watching the film, I kind of forgot that it was like shot 3 years ago, or whatever it was filmed, and it does feel still quite relevant now. I can also understand with some of the story why they wanted to push it back when it was first due to come out, because there is a storyline that I could see when that is just, I can see why it was pushed back. So, but very, very good. And I agree. I think for me, Lashana and Anna were the standouts for me in the entire film. Lashana is cool. She has a great, like, her character has a really cool vibe, but it's also because I think a lot of people, and when I mean a lot of people, I mean a lot of white British men are going to be bothered by the fact that Lashana is in this film. But I think it's done in a way that I felt anyway, that she doesn't feel like they're trying to create this, because I think sometimes people try and create these badass women characters. I mean, I shouldn't say badass because I don't think that's fair. We wouldn't say badass men characters. We would just say men. It's the same with like strong women characters. What is a strong woman? It's just a female character, but a very great character that she is. And I think it's done very well in the sense that you don't feel like she's too cocky, because I think from the trailer some people think, oh, she's trying to be all, you know, when she says that, oh, I'll put a bullet in your knee and all this. But I think she does have, there is a lot of heart to her character as well that you do see throughout the film, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I do see, I mean, we'll see, but I would like to see now with Amazon obviously taking the rights, something to do with Lashana's character maybe happening in the future. I don't know if it'll happen or not, because again, white British men, but I do think that there is definitely a place for her in this universe. And Anna, I just think was so much fun. She was so cute, but she was so cool as well. Like I probably preferred her the most, and she's not in the film a hell of a lot, but the scene she is in, you really are like, damn. So, and I think she's one of, again, I think this is, you know, to Phoebe Waller-Bridge's credit, and of course to the actors' credits as well, who obviously had a chance in giving their say in the characters, that she doesn't, you know, you can see how far we've come from her being, because she is technically, Anna's character is technically the Bond girl in this, but she is so far removed from the Bond women we're so used to seeing, which I think is really, really nice. And so, yeah, for me, I would say that Daniel obviously is brilliant, but I do think the female characters are a standout. I mean, I love Naomi Harris. I've always loved her, and she's brilliant again in this. I wish she had a little bit more to do in this one, because again, I feel like this, I don't know if we will see these characters again or not. So I would have liked a little bit more. If we do, great. But if we don't, I would have liked to see a little bit more of her character. And Ralph Harris, just Ray Fiennes is also really good in this as well. I mean, he's Ray Fiennes, so he's cool. But again, he's just kind of behind a desk for most of it. But he's a great actor, so I really enjoyed it. But yeah, overall, I agree. I think it was a really good film, and I think it's been worth the wait. I saw it in Dolby, so I really enjoyed it as well. And I would say that probably did make a difference. But again, I think if you can see it anyway, I think Bond is good on any screen. I mean, the bigger the better, of course, but I do think it has a good story. So, you know, I think you can watch it anywhere, wherever you feel comfortable. But I would definitely say watch it. I think, you know, if you have seen his films, like the Bond films, and even if you're not a die-hard fan, like I say, me and Anthony obviously aren't that much of Die Hard fans, but I would agree that we both said that it was, I think it's a very nice, not nice, but a very good way to end this group of films. And I do think it's worth seeing, because I think it's been, his films and have been such a big part of cinema for the last however many years. Was it 2006 that Casino Royale came out?
15 years, yeah.
15 years ago. And I do think, you know, it has been a major part. So I think it is nice for everybody to see it, to kind of feel like they've completed a journey. So yeah, for me, I really liked it. I will definitely watch it again. And yeah, I would suggest other people to really give it a go. And you can hear Billie Eilish whispering in volumes, really loud volumes. It's quite nice to hear.
Great.
She is great. And it's a good song. I mean, it's no Skyfall, but it's a very good song. So
I would definitely, in a world where Sam Smith can win the Oscar for Writings on the Wall for Spectre, I think Billie Eilish may be looking at an Oscar, her and Phineas, because I think she really opens up, especially when she hits that final note in the song. I was like, Billie Eilish, man, you've grown as a singer, and I'm a big fan of her. So I loved the opening sequence. It was vulnerable and powerful and intimate. It was everything I felt the movie was. So it was a good representation in the song. I do want to mention Neil Purvis and Robert Wade also co-wrote the screenplay with Fukunaga and Phoebe Waller-Bridge, because their work, of course, was on the script was very good. George brought up the fact of like the future, you know, that I think, is it Amazon doing a series, you know, they do, this isn't a spoiler, but at the end of the movie, like every other Bond movie, they do say James Bond will return, and we know there's going to be a new James Bond. By the end of it, I'm interested to know what you think, George. I kind of don't see the point to that, because this movie is so final and has such power that to keep going, like I honestly don't know what another iteration and actor can do with this. It kind of felt like it felt like a mic drop by the end of it. It's like, and I would much prefer like maybe an Amazon show following Lashana Lynch or Ana de Armas, or maybe something from the Daniel Craig world. But it almost feels like if they had said at the end of Endgame that Iron Man will return and we're going to recast him, like it's like what, like this character, at least in the modern day, is so clearly this version. To redo that after this, it kind of like I good luck, I guess. But it to me, it felt like it didn't feel like Batman. Let's say every time we've gotten to the end of a Batman, you've kind of felt like, okay, this was the end of this era. I'm interested for the next, like Pattinson, Affleck, Bale. For me, this one, and maybe this was my own opinion, this one felt more special. Like I felt like I was watching a special movie. And so when it got to the end, I'm kind of like, good luck, Barbara Broccoli. Because I mean, it's a compliment and a curse, because you hit it out of the park with this one, that I really don't think you can top this. I don't think you can top this era. What do you think, George?
Yeah, no, I do agree with you. I do think the way that obviously it ends, and sort of, you say, yeah, with the whole James Bond Returns, and with Barbara Broccoli saying we're going to start looking for the next James Bond next year, I'm like, okay. I do think, for me, look, I think there will obviously definitely be another James Bond, that goes without saying, because they are, I mean, we'll see what this one comes out, but in normal times, they are great box office hits and usually tend to be do quite well. So I would say to them, let's give it 5 years. Let's give it 5 or 6 years. Maybe do something, as you say, with some of the other characters if you want to. But then I guess you sort of waiting again, and then people might say, well, hang on. And then you don't want to get into a DC thing where you're like, well, hang on, you've got the Daniel Craig universe happening on Amazon as a series, and then you've got the, I wish, Idris Elba series films happening. That's never going to happen, but I can dream. Happening in cinema. I think it would be very difficult to kind of, so it's kind of annoyed me in a sense that they've brought such great characters in this film. They're like, well, that's it, because we're going to reboot this. It's seems very similar to, I mean, I haven't seen them, but it seems like what's happened in Venom, where they're like, well, it doesn't really matter anymore because we're doing this. And so it's kind of like, well, what's the point? And especially for these characters, because they're so great, and that's just so great. I'm like, I mean, I really want to see them do more, but then is it just going to make things more confusing if they're already going to go ahead? Or would it, I mean, I don't know whether they would do this, because again, it's been said before that the name James Bond is a code name. So how would, I don't know how anyone else would feel, or Antony, have to see in this one, how would you feel about seeing a new James Bond with the cast of Daniel Craig, the remaining cast of Daniel Craig's films?
And I throw it out to you guys.
Anyone, I mean, anyone could answer that, obviously with Naomi Harris or Ralph Fiennes. How would you feel about seeing a new Bond come into that world rather than a full reboot?
Wasn't that theory disproven when in Skyfall you saw the graves of his mother and father that both have the name Bond at the end of it?
Did they?
I mean, I've heard the theory that that's where they brainwashed James Bond. I don't buy into the theory that it's the same, like James Bond is just a code name. But I do think I agree with George. It's like you bring in so many wonderful elements of this last version. It's kind of how I felt also, we talked about it with the Snyder Cut. It's like you introduced this great last scene that you shot for HBO Max with the Joker nightmare sequence. It's like, keep going. I said this yesterday on our What If review. Keep going. Like, it's so good. I have to give them credit, because I honestly don't think anybody was expecting Bond to create this connected through line, but there is a connected through line. These aren't independent action movies. And I give them credit that we're even having this conversation. So, and no matter what they do in the future, I think this movie stands on its own. I hope it does well. The box office has been coming in, and I think because older moviegoers usually make up a large portion of the audience, and they're the ones most skeptical of going to a theater because of the pandemic, it may come in lower than other films like Venom and Shang-Chi. But I still think it's doing great business in the UK. So I'm I'm happy people have seen the movie, but yeah, I don't know what I would love it. I would love if this was the TV show, honestly. If they made this the TV show and maybe Lashana Lynch was the lead, I would follow this because I think there is a lot of room here and a lot of great characters introduced, both male and female. And if you bring in like a male counterpart to James Bond that isn't James Bond that can be put in that show, introduce a character as vibrant as Lashana Lynch but is a man, and then maybe it's a duo show, I think that could work really well. So I would love if they continued this, but at the same time, it's a great finale. If this is all we got from this era, it still wraps up everything really nicely.
Yeah, I agree. I do think, oh, sorry, Kyle.
No, I just want to ask really quick, because I don't know anything about James Bond really. What is the time span between this version of the character and the previous, like before they rebooted it? How much time was in between?
90.
I feel like it was 2002 was the last Brosnan one, and then 2006 was Casino Royale. So
oh, interesting.
4 years.
Yeah, 2002. Yeah, Die Another Day.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so it was 4 years. So it's been 5 years, 6 years, because it was 2015 with Spectre. Spectre came out before The Force Awakens and before the last Hunger Games. That was the last James Bond movie.
So there's been about as much time between these two movies as has been like the previous,
like between your Bond
Yeah.
transition periods.
Interesting. So I mean, I guess I thought that there was like more time in between, because I was gonna say they should, because I agree with George. I think they should maybe wait a little bit, give it a little bit of a breather so people can just, settle with this version of the character before we get a new one. But yeah, I don't know. I guess in theoretically, if they're going to be casting somebody next year, and say, I don't know, it takes a couple years for the movie to come out, I guess it'd be on schedule, I guess. I don't know. I think, again, I don't know a lot about James Bond. I don't really know a lot of what you guys are talking about, but it's very interesting. And I like that you guys bring up the fact that it's that you guys compare it to these bigger franchises like Marvel and DC, because that's kind of been my thing. It's like, if I was ever, because I've heard good things about Skyfall, right? That's the popular one. I've heard
Casino Royale.
Casino Royale. Yes, I've heard very good things, and every time I think of like watching it, it's a little scary because I imagine it'd be the same as somebody who's like never seen a Marvel movie. I know it's weird to even think about, but I imagine it'd be the same thing where it's like, oh, like this is a whole lot that I'm stepping into, and I don't know if I'm ready yet. So I've kind of personally been pushing that off. And again, I wasn't really, like George said, I wasn't really introduced through other family members. I talked about this a little bit on the previous episode, but so I wasn't ever introduced to James Bond in that way. My version of James Bond has always been Austin Powers. So that's kind of a little background for me. So that's kind of from where I'm coming from. So yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about this new James Bond movie. So is it too long though?
No. I would say.
I wouldn't say either. The first time I saw it flew by. The second time I was paying real attention to where the movie spends its time. And I didn't feel that. I do think one of the small quibbles I have is Rami Malek is really great in the film. He casts such an imposing figure on the movie. But when you get to the third act, a lot of it is him explaining his plan. And his plan, they tell it to you, they don't show it to you. I feel like if they had shown it to us, I think the movie would be like 10 out of 10, perfect action, like on par with like Mission Impossible Fallout for me. As it is here, I think it's on par with Mission Impossible Rogue Nation as a really great movie that with a better villain, just a little bit, and it's not the actor's fault, I think it's the writing, a little better villain could have been a really perfect movie. So I do think when it comes to the runtime, you feel it a little bit in the end, but the movie actually ends like the last 20 minutes of the movie, including a great one shot of James Bond going up a hallway and like shooting people. That's like goes on for like 3 minutes. It ends so strongly that then you kind of like, you forget about the little pacing issues. They're small. I mean, the movie's so expansive, it packs so much in. You got to realize how expansive this world was and that they involve so much and introduce so much. I think this introduces more. Maybe Dark Knight Rises has it rivaled as like introducing so much in the final chapter.
I would say so. I'd also like to say that I disagree with. I don't really understand. I don't want to always mention her, but our favorite blonde. She had an issue with she felt like the ending was like an issue. I thought it was very interesting, but I wouldn't say it's an issue. I don't know how you felt about it. Obviously.
Oh, I won't spoil. I think this is not a spoiler. This is a point in the past that I feel that this kind of changed the way people were dealing with fandom. And this isn't spoiling anything in this movie. But in The Force Awakens, I feel like when Han Solo did die, there was a difference in like how people react to that. Like there are people who say that he should not have died and like people really hate that he did. But I really felt that going forward, there just seemed to be an attachment to these past characters that really blinded people from seeing the story that was being told in this new era. And so I feel like that was the moment where people kind of diverged. And so you're either on the side of these characters are invincible and Teflon, or you can actually get under their skin and actually break down and deconstruct who they are. And so that's where I think the ending goes, like you're kind of deconstructing who Bond is as a person, which I loved. But I think there's been this recent blockbuster craze of doing that hasn't sat well with people. Mm-hmm. I am not one of them. I think every time they do it, and I think Bond is a great example of it, they do it great.
Yeah, I would agree.
So,
well,
yeah.
you know, Antony, at the beginning of talking about No Time to Die, you were talking about how next year it turns 60. Like it's a really old franchise, and the fact that they're still making James Bond movies all these years later is really, really impressive, especially when it started out as like it would have been a big movie, Dr. No, and like it would have been something like, oh, cool, like let's see where this can go. But you know, I think what's even more interesting is that a film made in 1978 on a budget of $300,000 about pretty much nothing, that was made because one producer saw one movie at a film festival and thought, you know what, I have an idea. And he made that film over the span of 3 weeks, and that film was John Carpenter's Halloween. And they have managed to create 43 years worth of films with that franchise. So just before we move into that franchise, do you have any final thoughts on No Time to Die before we move into another legacy franchise in Halloween?
A+ on that transition, by the way.
Yeah, great transition. I think it's really funny that Donald Pleasance was in 2 major franchises and they have installments coming out back-to-back weeks. I think that's really cool for him because he's a great actor. He played, of course, Blofeld in the original, I think Goldfinger, and Loomis. So good as Loomis in that first Halloween. So
Oscar-worthy.
Yeah. Cool. Sorry, Ben?
I said Oscar-worthy, but at least nomination-worthy.
I was like, did you just say Oscar winning? Did he win for Halloween? Did I miss that?
Oh, like, if only. He's an amazing actor.
He is great. He's great.
Well, so that's it for No Time to Die. We're happy to move on.
Yeah, I would say. Go and see it if you can.
I'll see it when I watch Spectre, which I'm just making no promises that I will. So, anywho, Jamie Lee Curtis. A lot like Daniel. Well, here's the thing with Daniel Craig. It's been 15 years for him. It's been 43 years for this woman. That's like half of most people's lives. She's been embodying the character of Laurie Strode over different films. You know, she took a break for a very long time. She became a movie star. She came back in 1998. And then she never appeared in another Halloween film until 2018, which is, I think, like a truly interesting thing for like an actor to do. So Halloween, first of all, I just want to know, what's everyone's relationship with Halloween as a film? I know Kyle's probably nothing. Constance might be something. Antony, I know for a fact, is definitely something. So let's just go ahead. Kyle, why don't you start?
I'm usually not nothing.
Who's starting? Me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you would be right, Ben. I know little to nothing about Halloween. I do like Freaky Friday, though, starring Jamie Lee Curtis. Great movie.
Yeah, it is a great movie, and she's a great actress. Like,
Love her. And I love her
I would
Activia
love-
commercials.
Best work.
she deserves an Oscar at some point, and the fact that she's like never even been nominated is just a travesty. She's a great actress, and I felt that they were trying to push her for Halloween Kills because they premiered at Venice instead of TIFF, because they like 2018 premiered at TIFF. Like, I understand that they always have genre films at midnight, but they premiered this at Venice. Now that was a choice. Like that really was, and I think it kind of blew up in their faces a little bit. Venice wasn't as kind to it, but now it's fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, and I think the more that regular critics see it, not ones who are like very film auteur, like we care about decorum in our films and we can't have any blood, stuff like that. I think the more critics who see it that, you know, are more in touch with general audiences, the more favorable the score will get. But anyways, Kyle, thank you for that. I would recommend that you watch it though, because like, I mean, it's coming out on Peacock as well, which I'm sure we'll get to.
Hey, what is
I
that?
have some
Peacock, that
words.
means nothing. Who has
yeah,
a
I have some
Peacock?
words about that. But like, you have a really like a solid slate of films, which if you're doing nothing like the day before Halloween or Halloween itself, or like around the time, you can watch Halloween 1978, Halloween 2018, and then Halloween Kills. And I can honestly recommend, I can genuinely say you'd have a great time. Because I think the problem with this franchise for decades has been the different timelines. Now, if you're not familiar with this, there's about, I think, 6 or 7 timelines of the franchise. They've stopped and started because of how horror has developed over the past 40 years. Like, it was a trend to make sequels, and then when Scream came around, none of those movies had been making money, so they revamped it a bit. Then you had the remake era. You had a lot of different types of stuff that they tried, but this one truly is perfect because it's creepy, it's atmospheric, it feels like Halloween, which is a problem that, like, if you watch a film on Halloween, you want it to feel like Halloween. You want it to feel Octobery and stuff like that. This new film nails it. I think Halloween Kills will nail it too. So I'd
you
recommend
haven't
that
seen
you
the
do that.
film, Ben. You haven't seen Halloween Kills yet.
No.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Yeah, I just wanted to clear because you were speaking of it as like this great triple feature.
I know.
Like,
I was also wondering.
hopefully
I was
this
like,
doesn't
wait.
rise of Skywalker you, because I know you hate that movie.
Well, here's the thing. I just have no opinion on it except for the amount of pain I felt as I was watching it. As in, I can't believe that me and my friends left school on the last day and we went to see this. I would have rather seen Cats. And that's saying something.
Have you seen Cats?
No.
Well,
No.
then you go and answer that question.
Well,
Constance
No.
says
well,
no, and
I
I trust
suppose
her.
I suppose it's the same, as in I would have rather seen Cats, which is basically like saying would have rather seen nothing than seeing The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah,
That's a story.
Listen, I won't take away your opinion of Rise of Skywalker. People know that I enjoy that movie, but if it's between Rise of Skywalker, Cats, and nothing, if I'm Ben, I would pick nothing.
Yeah. Well, good, because I have every single time since. Constance.
Yeah, don't see Cats if you don't have to.
Or Dear Evan Hansen. Oh, that's worse.
But anyway, Halloween. Yeah. I haven't seen every single Halloween film because I've been told Halloween 3 has nothing to do with the actual, like, they just borrow the name, but it's not even about Michael. I don't know. But obviously the first one's a classic. We wouldn't have all the things that came after it. You know, it's one of those, if this didn't happen, it wouldn't have inspired other things.
Like Casino
It's not my
Royale?
favorite, huh?
Like Casino Royale. A bit.
Right. I've seen most of them though, but not 3. And then I only saw a partial of the, I'm gonna get this wrong. Is it Rob Zombie who took
Yeah.
a weird?
Yeah.
We did the 2.
Yeah, okay. I think I only saw a snippet of one and something happened and I got taken away and it was interesting. I was like, okay, I don't really like Michael, but what was going on there was kind of like, what? What's interesting about this franchise is kind of like with Jason, even to an extent, a couple of these guys, is they kind of get bigger than the story they came from. So a lot of people just kind of want to take them and go, like an Elseworld story. What if we drop Michael into this situation and then this happens, right? Same thing with Jason. Like, let's put Jason in space because why not? You know. So even though it gets campy at times and other times it gets a gritty reboot, it's always fun to see where they take it because it just shows how much people love the character because they want to put them in these situations. Like, this has nothing to do with where they came from, but we want to see how that would play out, right? I'm not excited for future movies, but the fact that they did get, original cast members come back, well, at least our original final girl, right? That could be two things. I'm like, okay, is this nostalgia, kind of like the original Star Wars cast coming back? Or is it because they got the script and they're like, ooh, well, that's something different. I'll come back for this. So that makes it more exciting for me. Those are my thoughts.
Jamie Lee Curtis is why she came back. She read the script back in 2017 and she was like, I like this. It was a different direction for the franchise. It was more of a character study of Laurie Strode, which I think is something pretty important. Talking about different iterations of Michael Myers. Michael Myers has been through cults, Family Ties, reality television, and some of the weirdest hillbilly remakes I have ever seen. But you know what? I actually like the remakes to an extent. I watched them, funnily enough, over like Christmas 2019 because I'd never seen them and I was just obsessed with Halloween. I was really looking forward to it, and I couldn't buy it on DVD over here because for some reason the horror franchises are really hard to get on Blu-ray in this region. They're only really available in America. So I watched them online, and I really liked his first one. I genuinely do enjoy that film. It's a good slasher, and his second one has one of the best opening 20 minutes to any horror film I think I've ever seen. But that just turns out to be a dream, and that kind of sets you up for that film, the film that follows. Not very good, but that is pretty interesting. Constance, like they have brought back other original cast members. They brought back the original sheriff. They brought back the
Lindsay, right? Lindsay's back.
Lindsay.
In this one?
Yeah, they've tried to bring back the actor who played Tommy in the original Halloween film. They were going to bring him back for Halloween 6, but they couldn't track him down, and no one's been able to track him down like since. Like they tried to, but then they cast Paul Rudd in Halloween 6.
Bring Paul Rudd back. I'd love to see Paul Rudd with Jamie Lee Curtis.
Paul Rudd was going to come back, but he had just signed for Ghostbusters Afterlife, so he couldn't film Halloween Kills. So like it was so close to happening. I would have loved that because I really like his Halloween film, even though it's considered one of the worst. I do personally have a soft spot for it. Like we all have soft spots for terrible movies. Rise of Skywalker, yada yada yada. George,
yeah,
I'm sure you have a.
I felt like you were going to say something else then.
I'm not going to talk about Paranormal Activity and your weird obsession with the horrible franchise. All I'm going to ask is, what is your relationship with Michael Myers, and what are you expecting to see in Halloween Kills?
So my relationship with Michael is very platonic. No, I was introduced to Michael. Obviously, I knew about him, and Halloween is my mom, who's a huge horror fan, who got me into horror. Halloween is her favorite film. I was obviously aware of him in terms of the mask, the look of Michael Myers. I used to get so confused as a child between him and Mike Myers, the actor. I just thought they were the same person, and then I was like, this is I thought Mike Myers was Mike, so it was very confusing for me as a kid.
The Cat in the Hat is more terrifying than any of the Halloween movies. So
I agree. Yeah,
have something there.
Definitely. Yeah, I don't know why. Anyway, that was just, but it's a very close name. I mean, Jesus. And as a kid, I was like, oh, okay. But no, so I actually watched the Rob Zombie ones before I'd seen the originals. Because when I was young, I was like, I'm not watching old films. And so I quite enjoyed the Rob Zombie films because I obviously hadn't seen the originals. And I still don't really mind them at all. I think it was an interesting direction to go. And I think he was really just trying to go in a completely different direction. Of course, he brought back Danielle Harris as well, which was really cool. I mean, I didn't know that at the time, but I did when I rewatched it. So I quite enjoyed them. As I say, he was going with something a lot more crazy. But I mean, well, I say that when you look at a Halloween 6, you know, it probably wasn't as crazy as some of the ideas they had in that film. But then I went back and rewatched, of course, all the others. I really, really like the original one, of course. I think it is definitely, you know, an iconic film and really holds its place in horror. Halloween 2, I know everyone likes and Ben likes. I didn't really care for it. And I think that's because the original idea, and this is going back to what you were saying, Constance, when you were talking about Halloween 3, which I actually like, and it's a big joke because I enjoy it. But originally, John Carpenter's idea was that this was going to be an anthology horror series. So each Halloween movie would take place on Halloween, but would be a different story, which is what he wants to do for Halloween 2. But then they were like, no, we want you to carry this on. And he was like, okay, I'm not really into doing sequels. So he did this film, which I felt was just not in his heart because he just was kind of forced to make this film. Then they did Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, which is, yes, this completely different film. And in that, Halloween is a movie within Season of the Witch. I really like Season of the Witch, not as, of course, obviously it's not a Michael Myers film, but as a, I think it's a fun, crazy horror film. And I think people should give it a chance. I know everyone's like, because it's very different. And then, yeah, then it all starts getting a bit weird because they started, then all of the different timeline. That's when the timeline started to go, ooh. It was, I felt like Doctor Strange had done something and it just kind of all went everywhere. But I actually recently rewatched all of the films, and I really like Halloween 4 as well. I really liked Danielle Harris's character, and I liked the story they were going with that. Halloween 5 was a little bit and then Halloween 6 I didn't enjoy at all. Halloween H2O I know Ben loves so much, but I really just can't get behind that film at all. I'm sorry, I don't know what it is about it. It just doesn't do anything for me. And Halloween Resurrection is just stupid, and Tyra Banks is in it, so we don't talk
Wait,
about
what
that.
film are you talking about? Because that film does not exist,
Yeah,
and we're
exactly.
moving on.
Ben doesn't believe that film. But then Halloween 2018 was very good. I very much enjoyed it. I'm slightly nervous for this film because I'm hoping it's not going to be like a Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, where it's just trying to get to the next film. I do hope it is able to stand on its own and have a really good story and not feel like a filler episode. I don't just want it to be that we're just, I mean, all these films are the same, I suppose, in an element that we're all just following Michael round until the end. So I really hope that there is something in this that people can go, do you know what? You need to watch every single one of this new trilogy, if you want to call it that. I want there to be something this like I mean, has everyone seen Halloween 2018? Oh, well, okay. You haven't, have you, Kyle? You have, Antony. Constance, have you not seen it? No. Have you seen it? You have. Okay, and Ben has seen it. But there's a scene in that film that for me was when I was like, okay, I'm obsessed. And it includes Judy Greer in a basement. And that there's a moment, and it was just, I remember being in the cinema and I actually let out like it was a very weird noise, but it was like in a good way. So I'm really hoping there's something like that within this, and I really hope, I want to see how they utilize bringing these characters back in this one, how they utilize Jamie in this film, and also how they utilize Judy Greer, and I can't remember who plays the granddaughter. Sorry, I can't remember the actress.
Andy
Matichak.
That's it. How I thought she was really good as well in the first one, but I want to see how all these characters come together. I hope it doesn't feel too rushed, and I hope I feel like we might only see Jamie Lee Curtis in this like at the beginning and the end of the film. From the trailer, which kind of gave away basically the entire film, I feel like she's not in a lot of it, and I feel like maybe that's the point, and that Halloween Ends will be her big film, which I guess is the point. So I'm looking forward to it. You know, it's coming out on Friday. I'll definitely be watching it. And I'm definitely be looking forward to seeing it. But I think it's time to sort of I've enjoyed this franchise. I think Jamie Lee Curtis is fantastic and she's done an amazing job. Her mother, again, obviously the original Scream Queen in Psycho. So I think it'll be a very nice hurrah for her and for this series. And I would like them to maybe leave this series to rest after these two films. Look, I know they're probably going to reboot it in 20 years, but I don't want them to reboot it in 4 years with a new idea. I think this needs to be it. And I'm very thankful for Halloween 2018 because of that film and the success it did. I'm getting Scream 2022. So I'm very happy. So that's my thoughts, my relationship with Michael. He's very cool. And I saw a video the other day of a little 5-year-old girl, and Michael Myers came to her birthday and she was so excited and it was so cute. And all these people were like, this is disgusting behavior to the parents. And I was like, oh, goals. So yes, thank you.
That is pure facts. George. Yeah, no, with that point about John Carpenter with Halloween 3, it was really interesting. He made 1978 and he was going to go on and make The Thing. But then, like the producers and Trancas International, they sued him. They were like, no, you're making the sequel. And he was like, okay, I'll do it if I only have to write it. And then Halloween 2 came out, wasn't as critically acclaimed, but it did make a good bit of money. So they were like, we want to make more. And he was like, I have an idea. And he made that idea, and then nobody liked it at the time. I think people like it now, but nobody liked it at the time. And so these horror franchises continued to make money, and they were like, you know what? Let's do Halloween 4 in 1988. Just as the slasher craze in the 80s was just ending, Michael Myers sort of came in and kind of boosted up a little bit before it inevitably died in 1989 with Halloween 5. But Antony, I'm sure as a film fanatic, you have a great relationship with this film. It's probably my second or third favorite horror film of all time. Just technically how much I respect it, and how every time you watch it, you still feel tense. You still get those feelings, and I think that's a really special thing. So tell us, what is your relationship with this film, this franchise, and are you excited for Halloween?
Yeah, I love the first Halloween. I would say it's second to Get Out for being my favorite horror movie of all time. I think that when I watched it for the first time in 2018. I knew the new one was coming, and I was kind of doing this marathon of all these horror movies that I'd never seen. So I did Exorcist and The Omen and Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street. And Halloween just stuck out because of how refreshingly simple it is. And I don't mean simple in a bad way. I described Black Widow the same way, a movie that's concise and simple, knows what it is, and succeeds because of that. And I just found the film to be really well directed and written. It's not the movie that's gonna win Oscars, but it's the type of horror movie that you go in and it's like, that's exactly what I want out of a horror movie. It's really intense. They set up these characters, and specifically Laurie, as somebody you're rooting for. You're not rooting for Michael. I feel like a lot of times when horror movies falter, it's because you're rooting for the killer. That's not the case with this. You root for Jamie Lee Curtis. Nothing can touch Sidney Prescott for me, but Jamie Lee Curtis is very, very close to that. Of course, we wouldn't have Sidney Prescott without Laurie Strode, so I have to give respect to Jamie Lee Curtis, but that's just my own opinion. But yeah, I think both are great. If you haven't, there's a great conversation that Jamie Lee Curtis and Nev Campbell did on YouTube. Go watch it, because it's really great to hear the two of them talk about, because they're from such distinct eras. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis was doing H2O, I think, when Scream 1 was coming out. So really great conversation. Yeah, a great conversation if you can find it. But yeah, I think this is a great movie. I have a personal connection to this movie just because I grew up in Haddonfield, New Jersey, which is where Deborah Hill, the screenwriter, grew up, and based Haddonfield, Illinois on. Haddonfield, Illinois is not a real town, but it's based on her hometown, which is my hometown. So it was fun to grow up in that area. One of my friends actually lived in the house that she based Michael Myers' house on. So it's, that's my own little nostalgia. I have fun with that. But yeah, it's a really great horror movie that I also think it does have a lot of more depth than people give it credit for. I think the movie kind of talks about, where does evil come from? There's that great monologue from Donald Pleasance when I think he's talking to the police officer, where he talks about, like, I spent 8 years trying to unlock him and then 7 years trying to push him back in. The movie, I think, is just really, it's smart and it's scary. The third act of the movie is really well done. And the ending, it's a type of movie that, we know this has had like endless sequels, but if it had just been Halloween, that ending lives, stands on its own. It's so well done. As for Halloween 2018, when I saw it, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I thought that it was a little stretched. Like, there were so many characters that didn't need to be in the movie. I thought some of the twists were stupid, like the doctor who actually was trying to get Michael. It was I wasn't into that. I like the idea of Laurie becoming the predator to Michael being the prey, but that was just the end of it. That being said, I think the end was the best part, and that's why I'm looking forward to Halloween Kills, because I'm like, well, it looks like the whole movie is going to be what the third act of the first Halloween remake, like the 2018 movie, was. So that gives me promise. But yeah, I think for everything I thought Halloween 1 was so simple and concise and could like streamlined, I thought Halloween 2018 was a little unraveling. And that's what I think led to me not liking it as much. I think I'll probably rewatch at least the 2018 movie before I go see the new one this weekend, and I'll give it a second try because I really did not like it when I saw it back in 2018. But it's not the worst. Like it's not the Nun. It's not the worst horror movie from the past couple of years. Like I still think Jamie Lee Curtis gives it her all. Judy Greer was really great in a different role from her, and I do think there were some good scare sequences in the movie. I think there was an attempt. The first one is so scary. This one felt more shocking. Like they were trying to get you to be scared due to the shocking violence, like him pulling the teeth out and hitting the person's head across the table. Like I hope that the new Halloween Kills puts more into suspense. I'll finish with this. It reminds me of that Alfred Hitchcock quote where he says, there are two ways to do suspense. One way is to just let a bomb go off and it just shocks the audience. And the other way to say is there's a bomb, it's going to go off and it will go off in 5 minutes. The first Halloween is the bomb goes off in 5 minutes, and this Halloween 2018 to me is just the bomb going off. So again, but I'm looking forward to the Halloween Kills. I will be seeing it in theaters, and I want to throw to everybody else after Ben, if you have any other thoughts. What do you think about this going to Peacock? Because I was surprised because especially with Venom doing so well, I'm surprised they went with the dual release. I'll be seeing it in theaters. So yeah.
Oh, I'm going to get to Peacock in just 1 second in the box office. I think that'll be the thing to wrap it up, how we think it's going to do. It's coming out in a few days. So very, very exciting stuff. Antony, I don't think you've been keeping up with the news on Halloween Kills, but I think it's going to break the world record for the most amount of gallons of blood used. John Carpenter has described it as the dirtiest and the grimiest Halloween film or horror film that he's ever worked on. So if you're looking for suspense, you're probably going to have to wait another year for Halloween Ends. Because, I could maybe see them doing that, like going full circle and maybe doing a more restrained, pulled back Halloween film for Halloween Ends. It's going to be a couple of years time jump, apparently. So maybe that will allow for a more tamer film. But I suppose I'll go next because I'm very excited about this film. I'm really passionate about this franchise. I got into horror, I watched Scream when I was 7, and it was really, really interesting. But if you watch Scream before you watch any other horror films, well, Wes Craven pretty much ruins the experience of watching a horror film because he's like, Halloween's yada, yada, yada. The girl can't have sex. You can't drink. You can't do drugs. Yada, yada, yada. Nightmare on Elm. And they talk about all this stuff and you see scenes from Halloween. And then it's like, then I watch Halloween and every time I'm thinking about it, yeah, this is amazing. And I understand now that he set up all of these things that the horror genre grew upon with the final girl trope and the horny friends who ultimately get killed. But Scream did kind of ruin it for me. So when I initially watched these films, I'm just like, oh yeah, that's from Scream, and he pointed that out there, and oh yeah, I see that now. But I never truly experienced it until I got a little bit older. But as a franchise, I was always more of a Freddy person. For some reason, I'm not anymore because I just think they destroyed what that franchise could have become with some of the sequels. I do think some of them are good, but look, Freddy will be back soon. I'm sure of it. Mike Flanagan should take the reins from Freddy because that man has the visuals to do a Freddy Krueger movie. But that's a conversation for another day. This new film, Halloween 2018, it came out these films for me are almost what I would say, not necessarily the DCEU has been for me because that has just been such a roller coaster ride. Imagine films that you grew up watching in cinemas and you couldn't wait for the sequel. This came out in 2018. My life was completely different. I was in second year. I was, I think, 14, and it was the first 18s film I got to see. I'll never forget getting into going to the cinemas to see it with my dad. It was packed. It was the smallest cinema, the smallest screen that we had, but that made it all the more fun. It was tens. People were just on top of each other. It was a really, really fun night, and it made me fall in love with the franchise even more because I'm such a horror fan, but I've never truly had the experience of a really great Halloween marathon. And I love the idea of having Halloween and Halloween 2018 a true story, truly connected, truly atmospheric, because that's some of the problems with the other Halloween films. They're not atmospheric whatsoever. And I just can't wait. I'm really, really excited. there's no other words I can really use. Like I'm so excited for Scream 2022, and I think that Halloween 2018 is going to be looked upon as one of those films that changed horror in a business direction. Like you look back at, say, The Conjuring, and it kind of brought supernatural horror back in a way that it hadn't been for a good bit, and that truly became the trend for films. It was cheap supernatural horror, like for like a solid 8 years. And James Wan also changed the game with Saw, the torture porn era of horror back in the 2000s, and then it was Scream back then in the 90s, and it was Halloween back in 1978. There are these cornerstone films in the genre that change the direction that the genre goes in for a solid maybe 10 years. And so 10 years from now, we could look back on it when we're seeing Nightmare on Elm Street part like 11 of a new remake series, which look, I'd love to see, but I'm sure we'll get sick of it pretty soon and we'll all move on. I'm really excited. Yeah.
Then I would add It to that list of influential horror movies, because I think it was the one that I think It is the reason why we have Halloween 2018, because it's the horror movie that brought nostalgia and showed how much money nostalgia has to the horror genre in a way. And I also think it's one of the best horror movies, one of my favorites. So I would put It with that too, in that group.
I definitely think It incentivized Blumhouse to make the movie, but the script was handed into Jamie Lee Curtis in July of 2017, so just before It came out. But I'm sure when it made $120 million or 127 around there, I'm sure they were like, yep, we're making this film. We're filming it in January. Get ready. I definitely think that played a part. So yeah, I think there's nowhere to go but to the most exciting part of this conversation, and that's the box office. You know, I have been fantasizing about this film coming out making $100 million, but I don't think that that's possible anymore. I really would have liked for it to beat Venom. Like it's like a round two type thing. Like they were against each other in 2018, came within $4 million of like. Here's the Halloween was made for $9 million back in 2018. Venom was made for 100, and the fact that Halloween Kills came within $4 million of a Spider-Man spin-off and still managed to make back its budget like almost 10 times over its opening weekend is something truly astonishing that I think is a great part of this franchise. This year, there are factors like regarding the pandemic, which is unfortunate. I don't think it will hurt it as much because we've seen with Venom, with Bond to a degree, Bond underperformed, but like to the extent it was a Bond movie, like underperforming. Like it's not as if like if Halloween comes and it makes that amount of money, I think it'll be pretty happy. So will Peacock hurt it? What does everyone else think? Because I've talked quite a bit.
And so, question for Peacock are they putting the entire like series of films on Peacock too, or are they just doing this new like trilogy?
If they were smart, they'd put them all on there. I know that in Ireland, they've just put the original 5 Halloween films on Netflix for Halloween. But I think in America, they're only available on Shudder. Shudder, we love them very much. They're very generous to the horror hour in terms of screeners and interviews. They're a great service. Everyone should subscribe. They're truly amazing people over there. But I don't think that they'll be available on Peacock because like they really should be, because people should be incentivized to watch all those films. It would be a great idea, but I don't think so.
Ben, do we know if this is Peacock Premium? Like you have to pay. Do you have to pay for Halloween Kills, or it's just free?
I think it's just free. Now, here's the thing. Peacock is not available over here.
I don't get the business strategy of like, if it's free, why would... I don't understand.
Well, I suppose they want to get up there in terms of subscribers to the service, and they're clearly not doing amazingly. I think having Halloween Kills there for Halloween is going to be something that, I mean, people will probably cancel it straight away afterwards, like particularly horror fans that see nothing else of them, like, oh, I'm a huge horror fan for like 50 years and now I'm going to watch Parks and Recreation. Yeah, I don't think that that's going to happen. But I do think that they want the subscriber numbers. And I think, look, if it does well on Nielsen, that would be a win for the film itself. It was a really cheap movie. if it makes even $30 million, like, sure, it's like a big disappointment in terms of 2018, but for the type of film that it is, it's still amazing. And during the pandemic, it would be like, if it makes, say, 50 or north of 60, which I think is in its, like, if people like it and it's actually a good film that's entertaining for audiences, I could see it getting past 60. For the pandemic, that would be like one of the best performing horror films within the past 2 years, like since It Chapter 2. That it would be the biggest horror film since It Chapter 2, which I think would be a really good headline for the movie.
My big thing with the box office, because is that we are in, I think because so many films have been pushed back, like every weekend is this big movie. I mean, we're not even talking about, Ridley Scott has a Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Adam Driver movie opening against it. I mean, that's not like easy competition. That's, this is
cute. It's cute that he thinks he can go up against Michael, but
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I don't think the low Rotten Tomatoes score helps any movie in this pandemic era if you're choosing what to go out. But I don't think the first Halloween 2018 had that type of movie up against it. First off,
no.
And the other thing too is like the following week is Dune, and then Last Night in Soho, and then Eternals, and then what? Ghostbusters Afterlife. Like it's hit after hit after hit, and I feel like people, like for the average moviegoer that goes once a month, I don't know if Halloween Kills is the movie they're going to see. The Rotten Tomato score you said is improving, hopefully, because the first one had what, like 79%, the 2018 one?
Yeah.
So that I think helped some people who may have felt like, what's the point? H2O kind of already did this. Why are we doing this again? So I feel like the Rotten Tomato score has to be higher. I would peg it somewhere between 40 and 55.
That's the projection, yeah.
Oh, okay. Really? I just guessed that. I didn't know that. Yeah, just because Bond is coming in now. It's opening around high 50s, which I think is the reason is because it's a more adult-centric franchise. Like not a lot of young people, save for, like me and George, are going to see this movie. Halloween Kills is rated R, so you definitely need an adult. Like you're not getting teenagers to go out and see it like they did Venom, I assume. So I don't think it's going to get anywhere near Halloween 2018. I also think it's not as fresh. Like Halloween 2018, like felt like, oh my God, Jamie Lee Curtis is coming back. The novelty, I think, has weared off. I think it'll maybe come back for Halloween Ends because it'll be I can't imagine H5O. So I have to think this is her last one. So I think it'll come back for that one. But this one feels like, well, you don't have the novelty of it being her return. And you don't have this is her last outing. It's not like Daniel Craig where this is his last Bond. So it's like, maybe some people will choose to watch it on Peacock if they watch it at all. And I think the other thing too, Scream is going to release a trailer for the 5th Scream movie this week. I feel like maybe some people will be like, I'll just wait for Scream. Like, because I personally think that movie is going to be great. I love all the Scream movies to varying degrees. So maybe people say, it's okay, I can skip Halloween Kills. I'll wait for the other reboot of a classic horror slasher franchise. So that's my opinion. But I'll see it. I'm still looking forward to it.
Well, the way I view the October market this year, well, if you think back to 2020, it pretty much had the month to itself. People were afraid of it, I think, as they should have been. I think if the pandemic hadn't happened, it would have been a juggernaut type movie. However, the reason I think it could surprise people, because people are kind of writing it off at the minute. They're thinking Bond, Venom, Dune, and then like you do have the big hitters then coming in November. But the reason that I think that this could be pretty strong is because you have Venom and Bond. Those are two franchises that will suffer big hits in their second weekend. Now, Halloween 2018 did suffer pretty big hits but not pretty big hits in terms of like a horror film. It was just around 60%, which is okay. It did have the month to itself though. But the reason I think that it could be strong is because Halloween 2018 played particularly strongly with women. Now, I'm not necessarily sure that that is the same case with the audiences for Dune, No Time to Die, and Venom when it comes to repeat viewings, particularly its competition in its second weekend, Dune. I'm not necessarily sure how many women are going to go out and see that. I think the strong female characters that they do have with Rebecca Ferguson, I love the woman to death, but she can't open a movie to save her life. So I don't know.
Mission Impossible does well. Her 2 Mission Impossibles are the highest grossing in the brand. Oh, well, Ghost Protocol too, but she's part of those.
She's a part of those, but she's not a driving factor in those, if you know what I mean. Like, I think if that would have happened
Natalia just took over my body for a second. It was like, we got to defend Rebecca Ferguson. You know,
That's
even
fair,
you,
yeah.
your Dr. Sleep poster in your corner, mister.
Oh, I have
Rose
two
Manhattan
Dr.
is
Sleep
coming.
posters. I have
Yeah.
two of them, and I love her to pieces, but, you know, facts are facts. Like, if you couldn't make a Shining sequel make money, like, if Pet Sematary made more than you when you're a Shining sequel, you're doing something wrong, you know? Like,
I think
that
Zendaya is going to be the female actor who's going to pull in the female audience if Dune is going to have a considerable one.
if I do not think Dune is a slam dunk, and I think there's an opportunity there for Halloween Kills if it's something that audiences like if this is a crowd pleaser, because that's the vibe that I'm getting from the film. The critics who liked it out of Venice were more critics that are more aligned with audience tastes, and they said it's a thrill ride. Look, it's a brisk hour and 30, like hour 40 minutes. Dune isn't. No Time to Die isn't. If people are looking for a fun little thing to do for the Halloween season, this is under an hour of your time. And also because it's so short, it might be able to fill up more screens. Dune and like they've pretty long run times. If you miss a showing for Dune, hell, just go see Halloween Kills. I mean, like what's the harm? Now, what does everyone else think? Because again, I can just go on for days. Like I really can.
Well, I just looked up. You guys were talking about Peacock. Peacock does have tiers. It will not be free on Peacock. You are going to have to pay either the $5 a month package or get the $49 for the whole year premium package. So it's not going to be free on Peacock.
How much is Peacock, like the lowest one? So then how much?
If you're okay with ads, it is free. If you don't want ads, you have to pay $5. If you want to just pay for a whole year and not have, like, they have a couple tiers, you could pay $49 for the whole year, according to Google.
But you're not getting Halloween unless you pay for one of these premium options.
It actually has that in bold. It's all like the film will not be available for free on Peacock. You know,
Disney Plus is shook with that.
So just
but the problem with it going.
there.
The problem with it going to Peacock is that you do have teenagers who won't be able to go into the cinema to see it. And also, since it's not available overseas, a perfectly HD version. Now, look, horror films don't necessarily play well overseas unless they're The Conjuring. But this film, Halloween 2018, did about 100 million overseas, which is pretty good for a horror film. Like, that's kind of unheard of, like, unless you're a pretty big name like The Conjuring. But since you have that factor, a perfectly HD version is going to be online. So people are gonna have options when they're like, okay, I can watch Halloween Kills on my phone. I can go see, say, Dune and Last Night in Soho. Now, I think Last Night in Soho is probably going to be DOA, and I would, if I was Halloween Kills, I wouldn't be afraid of it. But I think it's still, there's a lot of factors. I think it could fall in either direction. It could really fall in Halloween Kills direction, and it could be a pretty big deal. Or all these factors combined could lead to a softer performance for the film. Like I think either case is equally as plausible, taking like my personal opinions completely out of it.
I think it's going to go the other way. I with all these factors, if Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson can't sell a film during the pandemic, and that was also free for $15, could you imagine? And that only made what, just over 200 million worldwide.
Pretty well. I mean, it grossed more than the Suicide Squad. So, and they're both rated R.
But my thing is, though, the same deal with HBO Max with Peacock is only available in the US. And I think that harmed the Devil Made Me Do It box office numbers. So if you can just pay $5 to watch this film, then I think a lot of people will do it. I think as well, Halloween lends itself to let's have everyone come round to my house, we'll get popcorn, we'll order takeaway. Yeah, it's very much like that. Maybe they might make a load on Peacock, I don't know. But I'm also agreeing with the fact that, like we said, it's a middle film. I think Halloween 2018 did well because they did similar to, again, that's why Scream took this idea, was that people are more likely to go and see a film if it hasn't got a number or anything behind it. People would have gone, oh, okay, there's a new Halloween film. Maybe it's a reboot. Let's see what's going on. Now this one's called Halloween Kills. People might think, I'm not really bothered. I saw the first one, it was good, but I think being a middle film, that will also have an effect. And as you said, yeah, I think with an HD version being readily available to people, I think a lot of people will just stream it illegally. So I don't.
It's bad. It's bad. Don't do it.
I'm not saying do it, but I do think that will happen. So I don't know. I would really like it to do well, because I think, you know, they've worked really hard on trying to create this new little, I don't want to call it trilogy because it thumbs on from the original, so it's not. But, you know, this new little section. They've, you know, tried really hard to make this something new. So it would be sad to see this one flop. But if it hadn't have been for this Peacock announcement, I would have thought, yeah, this is good. But I do think the guys in the suits got really nervous quite quickly after Venice and went, oh, let's just put it on Peacock. And I think that I do think it'll hurt the film.
I mean, when Sony has more confidence in Venom than Universal has in Halloween Kills, that one is going to a dual release and the other one, they were like, no, we feel good. We're going to move this up to like October 1st. Like, I think that says something. And Jason Blum said it was due to the box office performance of Freaky. But I saw a great tweet that I think the writer was like, we were in the middle of a pandemic. We made back our budget. Like, we were good. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, that's the Blum model. Low budget means they don't lose money. And then if it's good, they make a lot of money. Maybe John Carpenter should like call like Amy Pascal or Kevin Feige and be like, how much money to just put like Tom Holland in here, or like Andy Serkis? Because then it'll open 90 million, because that's apparently what is happening in this world.
Well, with that point on Freaky, that did really irritate me because of one key thing that people didn't understand, which is that Freaky only really came out in the United States. It was scheduled to come out in November, the rest of the world, like late November, but then like COVID was kind of hitting us, and we were like, we want to save Christmas. So we had lockdowns in late October and November of that year because we were like, we want to save Christmas. We want to have Christmas. So then Freaky was like, okay, we'll open December 25th in Europe. Well, unfortunately, a little bitch called Delta came around and everyone shut down every single place, December 25th, literally the day Freaky was supposed to come out. So if you were planning on going on the 26th, guess what? You couldn't. So Freaky actually came out in July in Ireland.
December 26th? December? Sorry? Did you say December came out or November?
December 20. It was going to come out Christmas Day, but we don't open cinemas here at Christmas Day, so you could have seen it the 26th.
I remember a picture of you in a movie theater seeing Wonder Woman 1984 on December 26th, Ben.
No, that was the day it opened, December 18th. That was the just before. See, England shut down that day because Delta had started to hit them. We had a huge increase in cases on the 24th. A decision was made then on the 25th, and then Freaky was pushed to July of this year. So naturally, as a film fan, I had found ways to see Freaky because I got really sick. Like before New Year's, I was like, I want to watch Freaky. So I did, because I didn't think it was ever going to come out here. And then it did. And then, so by the time, it was a year later, Freaky coming out. So any buzz that people were feeling, they weren't. The only people who saw Freaky were like, I guess I can't go and see The Conjuring. The Conjuring, by the way, did really well in my cinema. Like, I wanted to see that film again with my uncle, who I love. I watch horror films with him all the time. I saw it once with my friend the day it came out, and we could not get to a screening for The Conjuring. It was just gone, and then it disappeared after 2 months. We just could not get to it. So, fun fact for everyone.
I enjoyed it. It was good.
I really liked it. George is just
not as much as the first two, but like starting with The Exorcism was a cool idea. I like that a lot, and they're just great with them, Farmiga and Wilson.
Oh yeah, they're the best movie couple of all time. Like
definitely in horror. Definitely in horror.
Certainly in horror. Name one other horror couple that actually.
Dewey and Gale.
Dewey and Gale.
And that love transcended the screen.
I just hate Dewey so much. He's just irritating. Like, I love Scream, but every time I see Dewey, I just want to punch him in the face.
He's irritating in Scream 3. I feel like the other three movies, Scream 1, 2, and 4, Arquette knew what he was doing. The third one, he just felt like he was high the whole movie. He was like, where am I?
Yeah. And then like Courtney Cox didn't do herself any favors in Scream 3 either, if you know what I mean.
Well, that was his fault. He told her to do it. So let's blame David Arquette.
Well,
Blame David Arquette.
she looked great in 4. And 2, she looks great in 2. I'm looking forward to
2.
5.
Everyone looked amazing in Scream 2. That's a great.
By the way, we were mentioning Jamie Lee Curtis. If you haven't seen Scream Queens, the show, the second season was okay, but the first season is great. She's great in that show, and starring Emma Roberts, who was. I love Scream 4 for Emma Roberts. She's so good in that movie.
Yeah.
So
And Hayden Panettiere.
The only letdown about Scream Queens was the fact that because Emma Roberts was in that, she turned down Harley Quinn. So,
really,
yeah.
I mean, on the range of people letting down roles, that's still better than Emily Blunt letting go of Black Widow for Gulliver's Travels.
True.
Yeah,
like there's a
that's just
range.
embarrassing.
At least I think Emma Roberts got like a Golden Globe, or was that Jamie Lee Curtis? I don't know.
Jamie
Emma
got it.
Yeah, Jamie got it.
She was great as Chanel number 1.
Yeah. I actually started to watch that because I came onto Disney Plus here with my uncle, but we only got to like episode 3 and we stopped. It's a good show, but like I watched it when it came out like in 2015 and I really, really enjoyed it. But like that's the thing, I was 11. I was gonna enjoy it because it was pretty basic. Not very.
It was very Ryan Murphy. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. If you're into Ryan Murphy stuff, like I'm watching Impeachment now, and I'm like, this is a Ryan Murphy show, but it's good.
And as for someone who personally really loves like politics and stuff like that, I watched the first episode and I was like, how do you make politics boring? Particularly to someone like me, who's just interested in everything, like the day-to-day of just everything, and he managed to make it boring. Congratulations. And when I look at how Ryan Murphy makes like horror shows compared to other people, in his shows, the vampires dance around like they're hippies high off their heads on LSD, and in like Mike Flanagan's Midnight Mass, they actually do like a really interesting way with the vampires. But yeah, no, in like American Horror Story, they're just dancing around like this all the time. Christ, that man is done. But anyways, that's beside the point. Any final points on Halloween Kills box office before we wrap this baby up? That's a pretty resounding no.
I hope it does well. I mean, I hope every movie does well, not just because I want people to succeed, but I want movie theaters to succeed. So I'm hoping it makes money.
I'll be seeing it in the cinema so I can see the Scream trailer in the cinema. So that'll be my. No, I'm looking forward to it. Go and see it in the cinema if you can.
Come on, guys. Yeah. In an ideal world, all of these October movies would be doing well. I can't wait to see Dune. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to Halloween Kills. I'd love for them all to do well, but I do think it will be a case of Dune will significantly underperform, helping Halloween Kills. They could both significantly underperform, boosting Venom and No Time to Die, or Halloween Kills could be pretty big, coasting through Eternals. You never truly know with the market these days. It'll be an interesting thing to watch play out.
They're very different. I feel like Dune and Halloween Kills are literally opposite sides of like one is very intellectual and the other one is like very straightforward. That being said, though, we just did have Venom, so maybe some people like, I just saw a fun, like grungy type of movie. Do I really have to go see another one? So we'll see.
Well, in 2018, people were happy to do it, so let's see if they're happy to do it again. Pretty much, guys, that's it from us today at the council. Thank you so much for listening. We talked for a very long time, talked about a lot of different things. I went on a rant about horror, which if you would like to hear me and George rant more about horror, you can hear us over at the Horror Hour on Spotify. Follow us on at the Horror Hour TV on Twitter. We'd appreciate it very much. But also, please like, share, subscribe to the council. Share this video around. Follow us on Twitter at the Council Pod and Instagram at Kyle. What is our Instagram?
It will be in the description. Go ahead, Constance.
I actually know the Instagram one. I'm like, oh, it's at the _council pod.
Yes.
Follow us there. Like, share, subscribe. We really hope you enjoyed.
Yeah. Also check out our merch. We are putting out merch for every member of the council. It's slowing down a little bit because of this transitional phase that we've had, but we have a really cool design for Ben that we can put up here in the video version. So hopefully when you guys are listening to this or watching this, it'll be out and you guys can buy it and enjoy it. So Thank you guys.
Fingers crossed. I can't wait for people to see it. I'm really, really happy with how it looks. As a Doctor Sleep fan, which if people are looking for something to watch on Halloween, The Shining and Doctor Sleep is another great double feature, guys. That's all I'm saying. But thank you so much for listening to us. Stick around. We'll see you next week. And hopefully Halloween Kills does well this weekend. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.